Several years ago, Gary wrote an article in Sailing World after we'd gotten the project started in 2005, saying sailing finally has a home. That is a place where we can collect all the stories from the sport, not only the racing stories, but the cruising stories and the stories that relate to the joy of sailing that people take. So, and that metaphor of sailing finally has a home has come true because we have a site here in Annapolis, the city dock, right adjacent to the U.S. Naval Academy, and 300 feet from their visitor center where 350,000 people come every year. 2 million people come to City Dock in Annapolis, so it's an opportunity to really put a physical face on sailing at the site here. But in addition to that, before we have a building, we have a virtual presence and a very, very substantial web presence as well. But there are several elements to the Hall of Fame which I think would be important for folks who've been following you on the roadshow to know. And one is that we're going to have our first induction into the Hall of Fame. We're catching up on 200 years of history, and we're inducting 15 people into the Hall of Fame at San Diego Yacht Club on October 23rd. And this is important, I think, certainly for several reasons, because every other sport in the country has a Hall of Fame. But whenever you hear baseball, basketball, swimming, tennis, soccer commentators talk about their sport, they always talk about future Hall of Famers. And now the sport of sailing will have an aspiration for young people. Young people can aspire to be in the National Sailing Hall of Fame. All those young sailors that you got on boats this summer, and all the young sailors in junior programs at yacht clubs across the country and community sailing programs will now have that aspiration to be in the National Sailing Hall of Fame.
And why did you pick this particular moment to begin inductions into the Sailing Hall of Fame?
Well, we had been developing the concept for the Hall of Fame since 2005, and we felt that even though we don't have a brand new building, it was important to pull together the Hall of Fame lists at this point. Because essentially what we want to do when we do have a building is have the place be not didactic, not with brass plaques on the wall, but highly interactive. So that in this case, you know, Ted Turner's being inducted, you can push a button and you'd get Ted talking about why he started sailing, the joy of sailing, and we can do that now virtually on our website. So the idea was, let's get this Hall of Fame rolling now, and we can do it virtually before we do it physically.
So more than just being a museum and establishing a new sort of storehouse for the history of sailing, you're actually trying to bring sailing to life, especially for children who come visit.
Absolutely, and I think an example was today or yesterday and the day before when you all had the Bics here for the road show and the kids got out on the boats, and you can see the joy in young people's faces and eyes. We have a site here now, and last summer we got over 1,000 people out on boats, and now we're up to 750 people on boats, both young and old. And the idea is to encourage everybody, not only young people but non-sailors. 85% of those people last year had never been on a sailboat before. So I think the whole object of, U.S. sailing and our effort at the National Sailing Center and Hall of Fame is to get people on boats, as many people on boats as possible, and to make the sport accessible to the public.
Well, I know just for me, looking at your website and reading even the short bios of the histories of the people you've inducted, it's just such a powerful reminder of the rich maritime history that we have in this country. Going back hundreds of years, we've been such a strong maritime nation, and I think that we almost undersell ourselves a little bit these days.
Well, that's the other piece of what we're trying to do, and that is, sailing has been inextricably linked with our history. So it's reflected in our literature, in our painting, in the music that we listen to. So if you go on our website, you'll see Sailing in American Literature, and we have an exhibition of paintings from the National Gallery up, and we're going to do more exhibitions from museums and art galleries from around the country. So the second piece, in addition to the induction, we want to call attention to this significant contribution sailing has made to the American experience. And that not only means people that may not be in the Hall of Fame. You know, Albert Einstein was a sailor. Morgan Freeman is a sailor. Of course, Walter Cronkite was a sailor and was head of our Honorary Advisory Board. Anne Morrow Lindbergh was a sailor. Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, John Kennedy. All these people who have contributed to our culture, but they loved the sport of sailing and they were involved in sailing themselves.
Well, great. Well, why don't we go and take a look at some of the plans that you have for this site?
Sure. Okay, well, this is a design that was done by a local architect for us, and we worked with the historic preservation people on the project because Annapolis is a historic district. Downtown of Annapolis is a historic district, so it was very important for us to work with the local folks in coming up with a design that was both contemporary but also met with their interest. As you can see, the model, as I mentioned earlier, the site is located next to the U.S. Naval Academy, where 350,000 visitors come every year.
So that large building with the dome is there?
This large is a section of the Naval. It's called Halsey Fieldhouse, and it's the backdrop really for a lot of downtown Annapolis. Our site includes all this basin that is part of state property and city property, which is being leased to us long term. And on the site, we've developed, we have purchased a building that will give us a building adjacent to the property we're in right now, which will give us a building that has 20,000 square feet. And as you can see, what the architect has done is really made a plan that where the building melts into the water and the water melts into the building. If you take a look at the drawing of the site, you can see how it really blends into the Capitol, not the Capitol building, but the chapel at the Naval Academy, and that it's really moving in, connecting the water and the land with the water.
It's beautiful.
And we intend in the building to have, as I mentioned to you before, highly interactive exhibits. We will not necessarily have boats in the building because we have plenty of space for boats outside the building, and making the building as kids friendly and as possible.